Hi, Peter. You're working for one of the companies that actually have customers in over 70 countries. And I believe part of their life cycle, many vertical market software companies are thinking about going abroad outside of their market to other countries as well. Can you describe a little bit what challenges does bring having to work with so many countries on so many continents, because you have customers basically in Europe, but as well as South and North America and Asia as well?
There are a lot of differences. So starting with technical problems about databases and languages inside of how to handle them inside of the software. Then the market are totally different. So we have customers who work single sheet products and high volumes more in Asia, for example. So totally different kind to work. We have different behaviors and feelings of the human being, the employees there. We have to deliver our software in all the languages we have in our market, so for our customers. And that's really a big challenge. And there's also some legal regulations in each customer or in each country is different, like tax systems, for example, and things like that. So it's still a challenge, yeah.
From a software development perspective, do you have like departments that deal with specifics of each continent or country? Or how do you make sure that you gather all the requirements from all these different countries and somehow put them into a kind of a one backlog? Because I would imagine you have one product, or at least the same product on each market.
We have different approaches. So we have several subsidiaries all around the world, for example. And we also divide the different countries or continents in business units. So we get for the product management from each business unit the specific requirements from this market. And we try to put them together and do the best for our customers there.
Yeah. From a technology perspective, did you use some consultants, or do you actually had to hit the problems the hard way and learn them the hard way, like the internationalization, the big differences in currencies, like even from the UI perspective, the amount of space you require for a currency that has many zeros at the end compared to the others?
Of course, we learned some of them in the hard way. So during the project, we never expected. So we are sitting at the headquarter or most customer in Europe. So we have to thinking about that. And when we go to Asia, it's totally different. So we run into the problem with a lot of zeros with the currency. But we also consider some consultant to help us, for example, for the Brazilian tax system, because it's really complicated and nobody really knows how it is working. So so we know that we need consultant. We cannot do that from our knowledge here.
Is it even possible for a regular developer to kind of grasp all these things? Because I would imagine once you have never been exposed to the Brazilian tax system, you cannot even imagine about what kind of problems you are talking about and things like that. So how does the actual technical development team understand these kind of challenges or problems?
In the specific part with the tax system, it was really hard because we have several consultants to help us. And I'm not sure if we have a 100% solution because they're not clear about what was going on there. But we need strong product owners or people in the market to give us really a good user stories that we understand what we have to do for this market. And that is also a challenge.
From a product manager or product owner perspective, sometimes it's even challenging to design a roadmap for one product and one market. How you establish priorities and value? Because I would imagine that each unit in each kind of continent or bigger area would kind of demand that their requirements are more important because probably they have customers yelling in a louder voice than maybe others.
That is different. We have also here different approaches. Normally we have a kind of backlog and we evaluate it about the benefit for the customer or whatever, and we have a rating system for that. But of course we are really customer driven. So if we have a project and he needs that, then we change priority a little bit as good as it possible for this customer. And so for the big roadmap, that is the reason why we have several business units who give really the input and they decide. And it's also a management decision when we say, okay, well, we want to invest more for the South American market, for example, and then it change also the priorities. So that is a discussion all over the year, and going forward, going backward, and changing. And I think that is positive for us because we are really flexible about that. But it changed also it's not only the roadmap written on the paper, it's also the development plan, what's going next and what is the next step and so on.
And basically, is there one branch, one product that is being sold everywhere, or do you have customizations or branches for each of these countries?
Yeah, it's totally different. We can scale our software from really small customer would have a few employees up to we have big customers which has about more than 150,000 employees, for example. So they have totally different commercial systems, let's say, and we have a small commercial system, we have a production system, and we can control machine, high automated or just manual things, so create driver and things. And you can stick everything together, depends on the customer needs. So scale it really from a small one to a big one.
But you did not decide to actually customize your application for specific markets, in the sense that actually to have different offsprings from the same product serving maybe the Asian market as well as the American market or something like that. So
yes,
it's one
course.
Product line.
No,
in the sense that one source code line or something like that. So it's not like you're preparing one version for the European market and then you customize that version for American market and then customize the European version for the Asian market.
Yeah,
so basically it's one code base line that serves everybody.
Yeah, that's right. We just can cope that with customizing to do that, or configuration about that, and to do that which makes the software or the software at the customer side even more complex, because there are so many options to stick things together, and so that's also a challenge to maintain it at the customer side. So even if we have our test system, which is a clean environment, it's on the customer side, it's growing and customization more and more and so on. So but it's good that we can do that we are flexible on that, even have the same product line, but flexible to react for the market.
I guess you also kind of prepared some different combination of solutions for different market segments, like small customers, medium customers. Was that because you felt that basically the requirements of a small or a medium customer is completely different than the one from a large customer?
Yeah, I think the requirement was completely different on this space. It's the biggest difference is on the ERP system, for example. The small customers, they are single site and everything is locally, and the big customers, they are multi-site, so they are spread all around the world, so they want to move orders from one side to the other, and so they need one commercial system for everybody, for all the sites, and not for the single one. And that's the reason why they are split it a little bit. And the third part is the production part. We want to split it definitely, because the most customer have the commercial part somewhere localized at a region, and everybody work on it. But the production part, where you have some machine control and things like that, you want to have all the data locally on the site. So that is the benefit there.
And do you think this is a good strategy also from a product management perspective? The fact that allows you to kind of focus with a different feature set for different market segments, as opposed to having a large product that's maybe very, very configurable, but then you have to make sure that you're able to configure it for the smaller corporations as well as for the larger corporations.
I think it's really a benefit to have it in smaller packages. We split it even more down in smaller packages. We call it fast to market, let's say. So it's easier, because when you make a big update, which takes several man days, the customer's waiting for the next release and waiting, and it has more impact than the update. Even if you have new functionality and you just want to provide this functionality to the customer, you don't want to make the big bang. So it just give him this functionality that he can work on it or can work with it and have a benefit out of it. So I think it's a good idea to have it in several modules which we can stick together and also update them separately.
Yeah. I would imagine also integrations would be a challenge, in the sense that in a typical enterprise setting, you will have complex integrations anyways. How does that happened when you actually multiply that with 72 countries? Because I would imagine that in every country you might have a different accounting system, a different kind of other things that you need to integrate with. How do you keep on top of that?
I think nobody's perfect, so we learn every day again what is separately. But like I say, the currency, when we have companies who work in over the borders, and so it's a more challenge to do that here. But so the small companies, it's more easier because everything is locally. You have one currency, one language, and everything. It's very simple. But for the complexer one, it's a lot of work. Yeah, sure.
I believe your company is also established over 40 years ago, so it's already a seasoned company, let's say. What would you describe would be some of the challenges regarding legacy maintenance, technical debt and modernization and so on?
Yeah, when you see it from the history, we started with modules which are like an island. Each module is separately, you can use it, and there are some interfaces from that, and that is growing more and more. And after 40 years experience, some customers still work with the old modules, and they are smaller or they're slower to update it. And so it's we still have to maintain all the old products. It's hard to cut something and make something completely new. And even if we want to do that, we have to make sure that all the other functionalities are in the new product, plus some add-ons that the customer is motivated to update it. Otherwise, he stay with the old one, and we cannot get rid of this old code. So that makes it more complex because the code is growing and growing, and we cannot get rid of old things, for example. And that's also a big challenge.
How do you see a strategy for handling that in the future? Because of course, years will keep adding towards your current state, so things will just become more and more complex, well, even more difficult to remove, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Because in the old modules, everything has a relationship to each other, and now we work more and more. We move our software development more to the service-oriented architecture. So we split the front end from the back end, for example. Then it's easier without making new functionalities, for example. Then we can provide it, and then it's easier to change the front end, for example, or give some add-ons. But it's just also the communication to the services is just a single and a clean interface, let's say, and not all the links together between the modules. So that is a big thing where we're working on, and that's the way we try to cover those problems for the future.
And I would imagine also having over 40 years of existence would also put some strains on the processes that you're running. I believe coming from waterfall towards agile, how do you see that transition going?
Yes, it's also where we work now more and more in an agile way. In the past, though, you have to imagine we have some requirements we can cover or we can develop in maybe 2 or 5 man days. So that is where we still work in waterfall. But for the big projects where we need more than hundreds of man days, for example, then we go to the agile development. And so we like to have the customer near to us, so we give him feedback as soon as possible. So we work with mock-ups that he can see the screen, how it looks like, and he can give us a feedback if he want to work with it or can imagine that is a good way, and so on. And we also separate this big portion of one development in small parts, so we can better calculate the amount of work with it, so the estimation also, and how long did it take to develop this. And we are more flexible to change the way, because we make also our experience in the big developments. When we start and develop 200 man days, the requirements change also in this time, and then we are at the end of the development say, oh, now we have to change the way. And with the agile development, it's much easier to react on that what the market needs.
You mentioned it's important to keep customer close. The question is which customer, because if you have customers in over 70 countries, do you try to create kind of a customer group across all these continents, or you start developing first for the European market and then you start from there?
We have some projects which we develop right now agile, and there's a specific customer group behind, and so we try to involve as much as possible, but not too much, of course, but we need that input. But the challenge here is that also the customer hadn't learned or is not in the way that he can provide us user stories or describe exactly what is the benefit. So most customers just describe, I want to have this, but they don't describe why. And that is very important to see, that is a benefit, and then we can maybe use another solution, but give the most benefit to the customer. And that is, we need strong customers who can work really good with us together. And on the other side, from our side also, we need a strong product owner, which really checks the market, even if it's not a direct stakeholder which is involved in the meetings, but go around the world and talk to the other business units and collect all the information he needs.
So basically you start with the customers that are closer to you, which you don't have a language barrier or a thinking barrier, till you understand the reasons and the models, and then you go with that around the world and try to collect feedback on it. Okay, right. That makes a lot of sense. What do you think about the technology challenges and the innovations that are happening? Do you keep track of them? How do you see technology playing a part in your future?
That's also, we go more to mobile devices, let's say, in this direction, because the customer want to have it easy to install, they want to take it with him and things like that. So that is also a change we have to make. So also the customers, they want to have more web-based things. They don't want to install something on a really computer. When it crashes, you have to reinstall it and things like that. So that is also an approach for the new things, that we go more with web-based things, with mobile phones, tablets, and things like that. Yeah.
From an internationalization perspective, do you see differences in behaviors between different countries or maybe different continents? Like, for instance, cloud adoption and things like that. Do you see big differences in approaches between geographic barriers?
Absolutely, they're totally different. I think in Germany or maybe in Europe, the most European companies, they are really conservative to go to clouds. They want to keep their data locally, and they'll have everything under control, let's say. And but when you go more to Scandinavian, for example, they're much more open to use cloud technique, because it's, I think it's a future to go more and more, but we have to do it slower so the customer can follow us, or we have to follow the customer, of course. But
yeah. So how do you make sure everybody's happy? Because sometimes there are divergent trends. I mean, going to the cloud opposed to staying on premise, there are two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, I think we have to follow the market as fast as the market is. So we need to prepare. So we have cloud solutions. We start with that, but we can also keep them localized. So we have, for example, IoT projects, and the customer can choose if you want to store all the information in the cloud or have it really on premise.
So making sure they have the option to do whatever they consider important is there. But I think that's the question, that's the thing, because it's so rare when you have a company that's so spread and has so many challenges. And now knowing AW, it sometimes becomes laughable when you see a small company trying to say, oh, we are going globally, we have a vertical product.
It's, when you see it, the headquarter was always in Germany, and then we go out to the most European company, and then we got a kind of world leader for this kind of software, and then we go to the Asian market and say, hey, we are the world leader. We totally failed, because the business is totally different there. So it's, and we need several approaches to go there, and still really hard. So you need people on site and still develop, and you will not sell a product which they configure and use. There's no way. They always want to change it, they delete it, starting from scratch, and that's not what we can do with from European perspective.
And I think what you mean also is you need somebody that understands and actually behaves. It's part of their culture, because otherwise, I think we've noticed so many challenges just being, although part of Europe, but in the eastern part of Europe, because some things you take as granted and they are not, and so on. So I think being local and actually understanding as a native the culture, it's vital in that area. But
that's the reason why we had, I think it was 1 year ago, we had an approach, our initiative to say, okay, we have several approaches for the Asian market, and I will not say it fails, but it's not as easy as here. So as far as the company is away, larger the problems are. So what we have done, we have a small team sent to China, for example, and stay there for 1 or 2 months, I don't remember exactly, and to check what is going on there, how they are working, how they are doing things, and how they are producing, and to find out, is it really the market for us or not? So we have to decide if it's make it sense to spend effort in this market or not. Long term, yeah.
I understand it's quite challenging. But you're doing a good job at it as a market leader. Is it easier in an area where actually interfacing actual industrial things? So, for instance, we've got a company that CSI got a company that's part of the corrugated market. So it's like cardboards and so on. And they are also the market leader. But because they are at the niche between a very specific technological thing like glass cutting or cardboard making, they kind of own the market because nobody else is actually thinking about that specific domain and the specific niche and understanding all the intricacies and complexities of dealing with that. So
yeah, I think our benefit is that we are independent from all the machine suppliers, for example. Of course, the biggest machine supplier, they start also to have their own software and also ERP system, production system. But the most customers then are somehow linked to this machine supplier. And we are much more flexible, so we can control nearly every machine which is somewhere on the market. Has still to be improved because there come new machines and also new challenges with this IoT. So actually we want to get data from the machine, not only sent to the machine. And but the most machines which are still alive on the market are not able to do that. But in the future, and also here we are working on standardization of such interfaces, and we push it on the market. And I think it is a good thing for the future.
Yeah, it's nice if you actually can act as a beacon in terms of if you're big enough, I guess you actually have a voice in what matters in the interfacing part and so on. So I think that can be nice.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Peter.
You're welcome.